Please, if I could ask you to remain seated, we will proceed to the technical part of the session on mobilizing innovative finance for water. And could if I ask the speakers to please come on stage? Excellent. So in the first panel, we've heard from the ministers on the criticality of finance and on innovative financial tools. We will dive into that quickly with the second part. And we will start with an overview from Ms. Carol Shushani Sharfenj, who is the director of the Arab Center for Climate Change Policies and the cluster lead of Climate Change and Natural Resources Sustainability Cluster at ESCWA. Carol will provide us with an overview of climate change finances and financial flows into the region and the types of flows that are coming into the region. Carol? We could have the presentation, please.
Good afternoon. I'll be sharing with you some figures that really echo the work and the words that the ministerial panel shared to help put things in context a little bit more. So as said, climate change is one of the factors that are affecting the ability of the region to achieve its water security because of its impact on water scarcity. And as we know, in the region, we are already witnessing higher temperatures. Through modeling that has been done under our RCAR initiative, we see that temperatures in the Arab region are increasing up to 2.6 degrees by mid-century and nearly 5 degrees by the end of the century. This has implications for water resource availability. Indeed, when we think about vulnerability, and as His Excellency, the Minister of Water, Resources and Irrigation of Egypt mentioned, vulnerability is more than just climate impacts. It's your ability to cope. And we see across the region that the vulnerability of water availability in the region is also increasing, as you can see the red. So how are countries dealing with this challenge of mobilizing climate finance for water? Well, they put these types of commitments and priorities for action in their national communications and other reports to the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework on Climate Change. And through these various reports, including their nationally determined contributions, they articulate what are their priority needs. And indeed, 21 Arab states submitted their nationally determined contributions before the last deadline in 2022, and now about a handful have reached their next round, the NDC 3.0 submissions by the September deadline last month. But basically, when we look at the figures of the Arab region and their ask, what they are asking in order to achieve their climate finance needs, we see the ask up to 2023 was $570 billion. The receipt of the Arab region was under $80 billion. When you think of all climate finance and principal climate finance that really is targeted for climate funds, only $55 billion. $55 billion sounds a lot for 22 countries, but the ask is 570, so it's really a drop in the bucket. When articulating the needs, the Arab states also prioritize, of course, the sectors, not only the projects, but the sectors that they look at. And water, by far, is the priority sector reflected in the nationally determined contributions and in the other documentation submitted for climate finance. And that is actually why we set up this regional initiative called the Arab Initiative to Mobilize Climate Finance for Water, which was launched at the 2023 UN Water Conference with the partners here and who are organizing this session. Specifically to see, we know climate is affecting water scarcity. We know water scarcity has to be addressed with the need for investment in the water sector. How can we come together and make this more accessible for Arab states? So I'm just going to share some figures here to put into numbers where we are, particularly since investment and the banking sector here that is also with us here today also operates on numbers. And we have to realize that when we look at climate finance, it is a subset of sustainable finance. So sustainability finance is the broad SDGs. Then we have green finance, which is a subset looking at green sectors, and then climate finance, which is very specific to meeting the criteria of hitting adaptation or mitigation goals. And when we look at that, there's principal climate finance and significant. So just to realize those components when you're really looking at if climate finance is being mobilized versus general finance. And when we look at climate finance and adaptation and mitigation, water is all about adaptation, and water is the priority for the region. However, when we look at the numbers going from 2010 till 2023, mitigation is getting 2.3 times more money and flows into the region than adaptation. So we're skewed. While there's an effort to make parity between adaptation and mitigation finance, mitigation is still getting more, things like transport and energy work versus water-related projects, though some water-related projects also advance mitigation goals. And just to again put into context, when we think about climate finance, water is in blue, what you see here, but transport sector is that gray-white. So transport, which is again very important for reducing emissions and helping with connectivities across cities, is getting more resources, though it's not as much of a priority for this region as water, which is the blue. So let's look a little bit more specifically into the water sector. We see that the water sector has been getting more resources. In fact, in the last 2 years, they received across the Arab region, in 2022 and 2023, we reached the 1 billion mark in climate finance for Arab states, which is impressive. It's showing that development banks for multilaterals, bilaterals, countries are committing more for climate. When we look at this, though, globally, while we have hit that 1 billion mark for 2022, 2023, across the decade, from the year 2010 to 2023, we see that we had collected about $9 billion, but the globe had over 65 billion. So we're still at just 14% of the global, though we are the most water-scarce region by far globally. We look at this a little bit more within the distribution by countries. The real leaders are Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia in terms of being able to mobilize actively climate finance for the water sector. Most of these funds are being directed for water supply and sanitation sectors, which is important, more definitely, to ensure initiatives like the Decent Life initiative that His Excellency mentioned. But we also have to think about the importance of resource management. And that is the pink you see on the screen in Tunisia. Tunisia is the only one that's allocated a significant amount of resource to support water resource management in addition to supply delivery. So some matching across demand and needs in the sectors are also important to consider. And this differentiation is also important to think between the developing countries in our region, where the 6 least developed countries in the Arab region are getting less than 8% of the total financial envelope. And they are really the most vulnerable, and we have to work with them to make sure as well that they meet the SDG 6 goals. So just to show that investing in water is a challenge, we are facing a lot of issues, and because of the cost recovery and the long-term investments needed. There are a couple of solutions that ESCWA is working on to address this, and our distinguished panel will give some others. Some solutions include working on taxonomies to crowd in private sector finance and blended finance between public and private sector institutions. Indeed, we have been working with the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development and the Arab Funds to actually find ways to better access and classify what constitutes climate finance and green finance for the water sector. This will help to signal what is available and what types of project can be used to mobilize climate finance for the water sector. It gives credibility, it reduces greenwashing, it provides for flexibility and an evidence-based approach for helping to frame resources towards the water sector. This is being done across the world. There are green bonds that have been done in some of our countries that have taxonomies, but a more regional approach is being sought now. And we invite you to participate in a webinar series we'll be having launched as of next week to better understand how this can help mobilize resources for green finance in the Arab region. And then the final effort that ESCWA would like to highlight right now is the issue of debt, which was raised by the ministerial panel. We are getting more finance for the water sector in our region. Again, that 1 billion mark was hit in 2022 and 2023. but nearly all of it is debt. Now, yes, some of it is concessional debt, but it's debt. So while we're trying to meet the needs of current generations, we are increasing the burden on future generation in a region where we are facing $1.3 trillion of debt already. So finding ways to be more sustainable and managing this debt portfolio is important. ESCWA has a climate SDG Debt Swap Donor Nexus initiative, where we work with countries to find ways to take debt and use it for domestic resources through partnerships with creditors. We have happily had this program launched and approved by the Prime Ministry in Tunisia in August, and we're working with other countries to make this go through, to have innovative forms of finance that help to crowd in, again, initial funds to the water sector. So with that, I thank you very much as we hear the other solutions that our panel will talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. No, we lost it. Thank you, Karim. Thank you for this excellent overview on flows and a lot of the financing tools and investment tools available and being sought by the countries. And so now we move to what we've heard a lot about, Mr. Kamil Shahata Salam, Director of Development, Commercial International Bank in Egypt. We've heard a lot from their excellencies on the importance of engaging private sector and private banks in financing the water sector. So I will turn to you and ask, could you share some of your experiences working with the private banks and governments to develop and implement innovative financial instruments that can support natural resource projects and practical water projects, knowing that the engagement of private banks in supporting water is of particular interest, as we've heard from the ministers, and provide a promising pathway to advance the water agenda in the region.
Thank you. Thank you, Diyad, for the intro and the question. And I'd like to thank also ESCWA for organizing this session. I believe after all the speakers and this kind of discussion, I'm the bad guy here. I'm the banker who's talking about money and private sector. But let me try to make this image a little bit softer. Let's talk about commercial banks can work also in development. And this is what we consider ourselves as an arm of CIB, to be the development arm of the bank. We are mainly concerned with building sustainable, revolving credit lines and facilities that are available to the market, mainly for the global concept of sustainable finance, with a huge focus on the green finance part. Also, we have a lot of products can cover mitigation and adaptation. Also, I believe all the public and government interventions are in the level of the infrastructure, being a catalyst to the market, but at the end, the private sector who should take the lead later on, and all whatever activities we are targeting should be implemented directly by the private sector. Accordingly, in this transition phase, this is what we have tried to do. I'll talk about two folds. CIB as a commercial bank, we already have a good portfolio of sustainable products, sustainability products, green finance products in different areas: energy efficiency, renewable energy. Even we have developed specialized products for water on the level of, for example, water efficiency, the use under the efficiency part of the energy efficiency, and also wastewater treatment plants financing for the industrial sector. And this will lead me to, as what we heard since morning, that mainly water will be used for three main things: for household drinking and sanitary, and for agriculture and industrial. All the three folds, you can develop separate products related to them. And I'd like to also, and this is what we already have done in CIB on the two folds. In the asset side, we provided a lot of products directly to the private sector, as I'm saying, to this part. But on the liability side, the sourcing of funds, We issued a green bond. We started to have direct relations with MDBs like EBRD, EU, and different AFD and so on, where we managed to solicit concessional lending attached with technical assistance sometimes, because a huge part of the transformation for most of the banks and financial products is the knowledge and the know-how, and this is where a huge gap exists between the facilitator, like financial institutions, and the target group. And this is also a new part. We managed to combine soft loans with technical assistance, and this is also expedite the utilization and the impact of these funds. On the other dimension, and this is where I'd like to talk more, which is success story of CIB, which building a model where banks can work together, can cooperate, not to compete. And this is what we have done. CIB, for the last maybe 25 years, we managed to work as an ABEX bank, where we do some sort of a blended finance between government funds, private sector funds, international financial institutions, MDBs, and then all of these stakeholders together will, for example, design a product or a program financing green finance, and then CIB act as an ABEX bank, where we develop this kind of financial products. These financial products, we will make it available to the grassroots or the target groups all over the country, not limited to CIB customers, but collectively with other commercial banks exist in the market. In our we are teaming up with like 16, 17 other commercial banks, starting from the big private names. We can go down to the public sector banks or even the agriculture bank, where these small loans or big loans can be available anywhere in the country with this kind of definition. What kind of products actually is available currently? We can see that in the industrial part, we have pollution abatement activities, financing the industrial sector, even introduced new things like microfinance and value chain finance related to these green finance and water activity, because it's not about financing the plant itself or the well or the modernization of the irrigation system, but it's also the stakeholders. For example, the photovoltaic suppliers of these, the irrigation network producers, and so on. The rest of the ecosystem is very important. This is why we call it the value chain finance part. If we have it like from the dimension, what kind of the target group, we started from the mega projects, as the minister was talking about, the PPP projects, public-private partnership activities, and mega loans, to the big corporate SMEs, and even to the level of small farmers. We can have, through even cooperatives, water associations, all of these target groups, we managed to develop financial products highly tailored to them, available to the nearest place to them. These will help them to enhance and develop the different activities. Also, having this kind of funding, because currently, as Carol was saying, a lot of funds all over the world, but it's not enough. That's why we started to blend it with commercial funding. Currently, we are building another transaction where we will co-finance it between a blended finance from a concessional funding, plus each commercial bank will lend or co-finance it one-to-one. So this is also will multiply the impact, and this will help to engage more the private sector, not just to be 100% dependent on the multilateral agreements or development agencies. Also, another dimension we started to work in, and I think it's very innovative, access to finance, because mobilizing funds is not that issue. Also, funds in Egypt, and I believe in most of the countries, and because most of these projects, the majority will be in the local currency of any of our Arab network. It's not the problem of the availability of funds. The main issue is access to these funds. And this is why getting more innovative in linking risk-sharing mechanism, guarantee schemes, and even agriculture indexes like weather index and all of these. All of these things is very insurance. This is where I believe the new intervention of the technical assistant parts and the grants components should be directed to enable the ecosystem and to empower it, because funding is there, products, financial products is available, and we can develop more, and together because there is, yes, I know there is a lack of knowledge in some of the commercial banks, but with the existing of the model we are talking about, the APEX model, we can develop together projects and new financial products which will be distributed and disseminated all over the country. But the idea is how to bridge or to reduce these challenges of accessing such funds. This is in a nutshell what are the innovative ideas I believe it should be exist in the market currently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zia.
Thank you. I believe, you've given us a lot to think about under the sustainable, as you said, revolving credit line, and you stressed an important point on the knowledge gap, that the funds are accessible, but how to access these funds, there's big gap, which is also interesting, and the cooperation between banks that pull together don't complete to provide these funds. And I think on this knowledge gap, and then I'll turn also to Amgad, because I think that's a big point that also Amgad talks about. We've also heard from the excellencies also about the importance of climate finance and accessing that. Luckily, the three countries have access to the climate, and they have projects funded by GCF. But could you maybe speak more on the role of GCF in mobilizing this finance to the water sector in the region, and picking up on this private banks, the possible collaboration or role you see for the private sector to support this access to the GCF funding and climate finance in general?
Sure. Thanks, Ziad, for that. I'm glad to come to speak after Mr. Kamel as well, and Carol giving that technical perspective. I think from GCF perspective, it's so GCF, if you just hear the term, it's the Green Climate Fund, and it's the largest multilateral climate fund that's been established under UNFCCC framework or convention. And the way we really work for the water sector, to finance the water sector, let me take you on the journey in GCF for the water project. So when I joined the GCF like 4 years ago, we didn't really have any clear strategy. Like we have a mandate to work for a project that really battle climate change, but we don't know from where to start. And the starter for us was really like, want to understand really what are really the challenge with the water project. So we heard about lacking of the capacity, but also the undervalue of water, the upfront cost that's required for water projects, lacking of the investment from the private sector or the interest, because water project mainly adaptation, and it's taking a long time or horizon to repay any loans or any investments in the water project. And by taking those challenge in front of our eyes, and we have climate finance, we have our mechanism of financing, we have the flexibility to work with all financial instruments like grant, concessional loans, bond guarantees, debt swap, and so on. So we start to think like, all right, so if that's the challenge, that's our capacity, how we can really find a way to make climate finance as enabler, as a catalytic for the water sector. So we started by laying out really like a water strategy that again define what type of pathways for the paradigm shifting for mitigation project and adaptation project within the water sector. And after we put the strategy, we start to think about, all right, so now we have a strategy that inform every partner around the globe how they can really engage with GCF in the water sector, but where they need to start. So how they can really design their project to really access climate finance. So we started by engaging with our partner, and we design actually like a clear guidelines that really help how you design your project for like water project mainly to access climate finance. And of course, that wasn't really also enough to make really things happen to mobilize more money or more funds into the water sector. So we turned that guideline into like a capacity building program that we currently actually run in many partners. So thanks for CEDA for Engage and also Arab Water Council, UFM, where we actually do like this type of training currently in the region and for Mediterranean countries as well. But also building the capacity, it's not enough really to mobilize more finance. Because building capacity, yes, it can help people to understand how to access, but really how to mobilize, it's a different things. Because mobilizing finance require really to bring public money and private money and other donor or investment money as well. So we start to look at what could be the innovative thinking or innovative approach that can really attract investors to invest in the water sector. So to invest in any investment, you really need an asset. I think we hear the word asset from Kamel. And that like asset is just like as a guarantee for your investment, all right? So if you buy an apartment and you invest in this apartment, so you have that apartment as an asset. But if you invest in water, do you really have an asset? So we create the concept of treating water as an asset class. So we create that asset class for the water that really become as a vehicle or as a mechanism to really attract investment. And we've been able to take this concept for like wastewater reuse. So we did a program in South Africa for 1.5 billion by treating water as an asset class only for wastewater reuse. The other one also we take it with IFC to do like for the climate resilience infrastructure for water infrastructure. And we've been able also to create a mechanism where we are able to mobilize like 1.2 billion. But when it comes to the region here, I think like we're facing more challenge, I think. I think a more challenge in terms of we don't really have the commercial bank integrated with us or interacting with us. So I will use this platform here to invite SIB to engage more with us because the GCF really role is to make climate finance as an enabler, as a catalytic, to also to de-risk the investment for private sector, but also really like to ensure the project is really bankable and affordable. I think we heard from Carol about the debt scale in this region, which is a very, very challenging. But if we are able really to treat water as an asset class that supposedly to generate like a clear revenue stream for that debt or for that investment that's in alignment as well with Paris Agreement. So how you bring all those elements together. So we have the concept, we have also applied that concept and it's workable, but we really need to bring it to the region. But I think like the challenge is also to engage with the commercial bank here and the commercial bank start to look at climate finance as an enabler as well, because unfortunately the region look at climate finance as the only source of finance. And that become very challenging. Yes, we can fund the project 100%, but our capital is very limited as well. If we are able to leverage our capital by using our level of concessionality, the opportunity to give grants, we can actually make this happen. So, and to be honest, like the region is really ready for this. Our key donors or funding are actually ready. So I just came from a mission from Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, meeting with all sovereign funds. I think they are a great opportunity. So we're looking now with the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development to create, again, a water nexus investment platform with 1.2 billion. We're also working with ISDB, Islamic Development Bank, to do like another initiative for water for 1 billion as well to serve again those countries. In the same time, also talking to like in Abu Dhabi, like with GCFC, with Altera, I think there is a great opportunity now. We try to find a way to put again a new initiative as well to serve again the water sector, to serve again the Arab region. So there is a great interest from all the key players to make this happen. But also one thing that is really missing is the bankable project or the pipeline. We don't really have a clear pipeline project that really come from the region. We heard like the ministers in the first segment talk about all those ideas, projects they try to do, but those projects are not really translated in a way to come to access those potential funds that's already available. So I think what we're really missing and we need to do here to invest a lot in generating the pipelines of projects. And the good thing again about the way GCF cooperate and also create those initiatives like I've been talking about, this 1.5 or 1.2 billion, is actually we always create a component in those initiatives as 100% grant to actually develop or generate those pipelines. And that I think one of our contribution as well to ensure really all other elements all coming together, but also we generate pipeline as well able to access this finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amgad. I think you put out a clear pathway on accessing GCF fund, the strategies, the need for building capacities, but also to the know-how to mobilize and get these funds. And again, you stressed a lot on bankable projects, not just saying that there's a need, but knowing how to build a bankable project that can be funded by many partners together. And you've talked about partnership with AAF, ECD, ISDB, and now we have a call out to the commercial banks to also join this. Thank you for that. We turn next to Ms. Anna Rosendahl, Head of Regional Development Cooperation in the Middle East and North Africa with the Embassy of Sweden in Jordan. Ms. Anna, as we've heard from the ministers and many of the speakers, the great need for investment in water in the region. So maybe could you please just share with us the Swedish priorities and opportunities for the future that support these needs, while highlighting some of the programs and partnerships that SIDA is currently supporting, as we've heard in the MENA region. In addition, given that we've just heard on the need to involve the various actors, if you could also elaborate on SIDA's added value in supporting private and public actors in the region as we head towards the 2026 UN Water Conference.
So, okay, thank you so much, and thank you very much, ESCWA, for having this session, and thank you, panel colleagues. Let me just start by saying that the overarching goal for Sweden and SIDA with development cooperation is to create better living conditions for people living in poverty and under oppression. And one important aspect of that is that access to water is a human right. And no need to say it, but I say it anyway, that this region is under extreme stress, and one of Sweden's priorities is sustainable management of water resources. So we're a public agency. We work with taxpayers' money, so we have a small budget. But I think that if we work strategically and together with other actors, we are able to use these funds in a catalytic way. And what we can do is, for example, we could unlock other funding resources, we can support reforms, and we can share risks. And I would like to give you a few examples of how we work. So first, on bankability, we can support project preparation with a focus on bankability. And in many instances, the reason why projects don't reach financial close is not a lack of funds. It's the financial and technical viability of the projects. Capital is available, even though not sufficient, perhaps, in global climate funds, and Sweden is also a major contributor to the Green Climate Fund. But institution investors are looking to develop infrastructure assets with long-term and predictable cash flows, but are looking for high-quality projects, and quality that includes large upfront costs that can be difficult to secure. So we think, and we do act as a flexible donor, and we can fund like early project cycle that can be catalytic and achieve significant leverage. So through the Blue Mediterranean Partnership, we are supporting the development of wastewater treatment and sludge management in Alexandria through financial, technical designs, procurement processes, and development environmental safeguards with the aim to securing a 160 million euro investments. So that's one project coming up in your pipeline. We also, you mentioned it, Carol, we support the AIM project or initiative that together with ESCWA, GCF, FAO and other partners, we're supporting the Arab initiative for mobilizing climate finance with the aim of building capacity to increase funding flows for climate adaptation in the water sector. And also together with the Union for the Mediterranean, you mentioned it as well, but I wanted to reiterate it, that we are funding a training program aiming at supporting government agencies in the MENA countries to develop projects that can be funded by the Green Climate Fund. On policy reform, the second area where we can work, the water sector needs to improve financial sustainability and increase internal revenue generation to attract more capital. And reform can be achieved while guaranteeing availability of water for strategic sectors, safeguarding national interests, and also respecting the human right to access to water. So reviewing water tariff structures in line with both environmental and social objectives will promote efficient use of water instead of non-sustainable consumption patterns. And the third area, risk sharing. Increased revenues together with simplified and predictable regulation and streamlined bureaucratic processes are all crucial for investments, but risk, or perhaps perceived risk, in emerging markets is still a major obstacle to access capital markets. And this is another area where Sweden can support investments in the water sector. Financial guarantees can be deployed to sensibly share risk in investment projects, and this can range from concessional guarantee instruments for projects with high development impact to market-priced export credit guarantees issued to support transactions involving Swedish export. So on the first questions, is focus on preparing bankable projects, support reforms, and risk sharing. On your second question, I think that public funding and donor organizations, we can have a catalytic role. We can, for example, fund small-scale innovations to test new technology, and if successful, then they can be scalable and perhaps interest commercial banks or other financial institutions. We are supporting what we call Challenge Fund in the region, Water and Energy for Food. And they can apply for funding, and they need to have sustainable business models. And what we mean by sustainable business models in this case is use less water, use less energy, and contribute to food security. So I think that not all of these innovations will be successful, but we might be able to find just a few that can be scalable and then, support the water situation in this region. So I think I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. And we do, value this role of better the living conditions of people through access to water as a human right. You've talked about 3 pillars under bankability, policy reform, and risk sharing, which I think are good opportunities for the region to access financing, support them in access financing. And it's very interesting that catalytic role with the small innovations that could be breakthrough projects for upscaling and funding. Thank you for this and for the valued partnerships that you've listed. That's quite a lot in the region through these valued partnerships with several regional organizations and with banking sector. Thank you for that. We've almost reached the end of our session. We're at the closing remarks. We will have Mr. Mahmoud Fathallah from the League of Arab States, but if I could take 1 minute, because we have with us the other co-host of the 2026 UN Water Conference, Salma Zaid, with the, if you could come maybe here to the podium, just give us some remarks quickly before we close the session with Dr. Mahmoud.
I don't want to take much time, but I'm just sharing on the spot right now a lot of the takeaways heard here, and I think a lot resonate with our prep process for the conference. So just a quick introduction. I'm Salma. I work at the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the preparations of the next 2026 UN Water Conference. We've been preparing for this conference jointly with Senegal for almost 18 months now, and we have 14 more to go, and obviously there's a whole follow-up phase that we'll be talking about. But yeah, just connecting all of this to the themes of the interactive dialogues, and I just want to pause here and note how much of an achievement this was to get consensus on 6 themes of the interactive dialogues. This is a testament to the consultative process that we have been running for 18 months, because to get consensus on a water document in the UN General Assembly is definitely something that I think we just owe it to all of us, because it shows the shared commitment, and what unites us on water is definitely way more than what divides us, which is kind of the narrative that people try to push us into. So, and then just hearing different perspectives here today just shows how everyone is coming at this agenda from their different angle. But I really like that we have something like the interactive dialogues to anchor all this in the UN process and in the multilateral process. The focus of our conference is accelerating the implementation of SDG 6, which is obviously the Minister of Senegal in the morning said, or in the beginning said, how we are definitely lacking behind. We need to accelerate progress on drinking water by 6 times, on sanitation by 5 times, on hygiene by 3 times. But from commitments of these different partners here, we see how we can actually try to defy these odds, maybe not achieve and actually achieve universal access by 2030, but definitely get us a lot closer and definitely try to bend this trend a bit. So again, thank you so much for organizing this panel. I really I just want to also focus on the investments for water. We didn't choose the term financing for water. We chose the word investments for water, and this was for a very particular and deliberate reason, because it goes way beyond financing. It's about the commitment of resources behind the enablers of action, which definitely includes finance, and we need to look at all the different angles that were discussed here, whether it's mobilizing more climate finance for water, because looking at it from an Arab perspective is so interesting, but we all know the statistic that only 3% of climate finance goes to water-related project. Private sector, we know that only 2% of private sector, only 2% of total water financing comes from the private sector, which is staggering. So definitely the finance is part of it, but also looking at the other enablers of action like tech and innovation, and also capacity building, which I think a lot of the panelists today touched on it. And this in turn will reinforce financing, because I think the World Bank just released a report last year saying that only 70% of national budget is actually utilized for water. Money is available and countries can only use 70% because of the gap in capacity. So I think this all just comes together in a very beautiful story, and we can try to put all of these different pieces together to make sure that we really work on a holistic agenda for the 2026 UN Water Conference that brings in all the different actors, that people see themselves in it, and hopefully we can try to bend and kind of make a dent on the global water agenda and really reach make an impact on the 2.2 billion people that actually lack access to water and sanitation right now. Like, we just want to put a human face to all of this. We now live in a world where 2.2 billion people do not have access to water. This is not something that we can just live with. So this is kind of the narrative. We're really appreciative of all partners, of UN ESQA for supporting us with this consultation. All inputs really make it to the final products, and I hope this was reflected in the themes, because we really tried to take all inputs from the organizational session. From the survey we launched, we got approximately 500 inputs, including 20% from the youth. Like, we really want to keep encouraging this open, inclusive, transparent process on the road to 2026. The ministers mentioned the deadline of the co-chairs for October 17th. We also have a survey online to get inputs into the concept notes for each of the interactive dialogues with the same deadline of October 17th, whether this is from member states through the permanent missions or online on our website. We have UN Water here supporting us with this effort, so please feel free to reach out to them, and hopefully we meet in Dakar in 3 months to consolidate all this, and then on a hopefully much stronger roadmap to the 2026 UN Water Conference in the UAE. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for summarizing that and bringing all together, the holistic and all of the themes together to support this. So now we come to last but not least, Dr. Mahmoud Fathallah, who is the Director of the Department of Environmental Meteorological Affairs and in charge of the Department of Housing, Water Resources and Disaster Risk Reduction of the Arab Ministerial Water Council League of Arab States. Dr. Mahmoud, you've been with us on this journey since we started with the last ministerial session,
yes,
where we said we would engage in this Arab preparatory process with the Arab Water Conference, Baghdad, now Cairo, and hopefully we'll continue this journey to Beirut on the sidelines of the Arab Forum for Sustainable Development. If you could just give us your closing remarks on this session and on the process that we'll be heading for.
Yes, thank you, Ziad. It's a pleasure to be here in this discussion. I think this session with its two parts give us a complete picture and how countries are struggling to maintain or to meet between the water resources demand and supply, and how it's heavily impacted by the climate change and the water scarcity. We learn from all Arab countries that we learn in the first session of in the first part of the session, how they needs investment in climate change and water resources, especially in the infrastructure, and how that needs heavily investment in this regard. So all those needs finance. And the second part of the session talks about how finance from the international organizations and from private sectors be engaged in to provide finance for the for the water resources. I remember here how Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin, the Special Envoy of Finance, described the climate finance as not fair, not enough, and not efficient. So I think Carol present very important point in this regard. It's especially the taxonomy of climate finance. When we call this is for green project or climate project or SDG project, and the era of mainly all Arab countries heavily indebted. So the problem is how to finance the investment in water resources without affecting the debt of those countries. So I learned that innovative finance is very important. I think private sector finance also taken a very important role in this regard, and the concessional finance is the main target for the region now, taking into consideration the debt of the high debt of the region. I think it's better to have a good preparation for the UN Water Conference, and the importance of engagement of all stakeholders in this regard to improve our accessibility to finance in this important sector. Finally, we as an Arab region is open to cooperate with different organizations and stakeholders to prepare for requirements of our region in this regard, and this is I think will be our target in the future till the event of the conference. Thank you, and looking forward to complete our dialogue in this important session. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all to our distinguished guests for this, and thank you for staying with us. I think lunch is served outside the hotel for those that are staying, and for those of you that are staying for the afternoon, please join us for another session of ESCWA on integrating climate adaptation into post-war and disaster recovery. It's in Picasso 4, right? It's in Picasso room 4. Starts at 4 o'clock also. Thank you again.